The best way to listen to the best of the week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.
So just over 10 years ago, I was part of a pilgrimage to France, and one of our stops was in the city of Toulouse and the Church of the Jacobin there. Although no longer an active church, it houses the earthly remains of St. Thomas Aquinas. Our group was allowed to have Mass in the place, and after communion, we sang the Angelicum, words written by the great saint himself. But then we were afforded a special treat. That day, as Providence would have it, they were opening the external reliquary that held the relics of St. Thomas in preparation for a celebration of the anniversary of the founding of the Dominican order. And this was likely the first time that external reliquary had been opened in centuries. Well, leading that very same pilgrimage was our spiritual director for today's conversation on St. Thomas Aquinas, Father Joseph Johnson. Father Joseph is a priest of the Archdiocese of St. Paul in Minneapolis, where he serves as the rector of the Cathedral of St. Paul. Father, always good to be speaking with you. Welcome back.
Thank you, Patrick.
As a saint, he is an elder brother in the faith, and he inspires devotion, and I'm sure that right now he is interceding for us as we've asked for his prayers for this program specifically. What are the ways that St. Thomas Aquinas particularly can be an intercessor for us and a companion with us?
Well, I go back to that story that you told at the beginning of our pilgrimage to France, and maybe I didn't share with all the pilgrims the trepidation that I had in going to that church where he was buried. When I was in seminary, I had gone to that region of France, and I had wanted to pray there because my home parish growing up was St. Thomas Aquinas, and I was studying in Rome at the University of St. Thomas Aquinas, and of course, studying his writings and all of this, so I had a great devotion. I'm so excited. I get there, and I find that the church he's in is no longer used as a church.
Right.
He's buried in a museum. Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to get mad at the French Revolution for having taken it away from the church. And then I find out that actually that his remains have been taken away from that church to be hidden during the French Revolution, and that weren't put back into that church until the 1960s. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you mean they put him back into it after it's already a museum? Why would they do that? And I was told that the Dominicans themselves could only come once a year on his feast day to have Mass there. And I was so upset. So I said, St. Thomas, please God, if I get ordained, I promise you I am coming back here, and I will celebrate Mass here in your honor. And so many years pass. I'm ordained. Now I'm organizing this pilgrimage, and I tell the pilgrimage company, all right, we're going to Lourdes. I don't want to fly into Lourdes. I want to fly into Toulouse and take the bus, even though that seems counterintuitive. I want to do that because I want to celebrate Mass at the tomb of St. Thomas. They said, okay, fine. So they arranged that. And I said, now, it's a museum, so there can be special permissions. And so I want you to let me know if there's any problem with this. Because if I have to have the Vatican ambassador to France talk to the president of the Republic, I will do this. I have a promise that I have made, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm like, fine. And so they get back to me, yep, all arranged. I'm like, no, that was too easy. Mm-hmm. That was too easy. So I waited till about 2-3 weeks before the actual pilgrimage, and I said again, I want to confirm everything about Mass at the tomb of St. Thomas Aquinas. They said, yeah, your visit to Toulouse is confirmed. I'm like, no, I'm not visiting the city. I'm celebrating Mass at this church, at this tomb. Mm-hmm. Yep, it's all confirmed. Like, oh, this is too easy. So all the way down on the flight from Paris to Toulouse, I'm thinking to myself, how would I tell these pilgrims when we walk in the door and it's not happening? And so all the way there to the church, I'm the first one at the door. I open the door, and I see candles lit on the altar. I'm like, oh, it is going to happen.
Wow.
And so we had this beautiful Mass, and as you said, we sang the Pange Lingua, and we talked about faith and reason. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of it, as we're about to leave, in walks a Dominican. I greet him, and he tells me, we have mutual friends in Rome and all this. And he says he's there to, as you mentioned, to examine the relics. And pulls out this big old skeleton key and opens up the grate under the altar and then pulls out the box that contains the relics. And I was telling that to someone, and someone said, well, yeah, you went to see Thomas, and Thomas decided to come out and say hello.
So good.
And I just thought, I thought to myself, it's true. We forget the saints love us. To be a saint, it's not just that you're perfected in your love of God, you're perfected in your love of neighbor as well. You have to be. All the commandments rest on love of God and love of neighbor. And so I think we need to remember St. Thomas as an intercessor, as a friend in heaven. And he probably saw this nerdy priest who wanted to celebrate Mass at his tomb and said, yeah, who else in the world would go to all the efforts that Father Joseph did to get here and try and make this happen? I'm going to give him a little gift. I'm going to come out and say hello.
That's so fantastic. Wow.
Yeah. And I think we need to sense that. Some people, when they talk about devotion to St. Therese, they'll talk about that they did a novena and they found roses at the end of it or whatever. I think we have to realize the saints do reach out to us and connect with us. They want to help us. They know what the struggle is. They know how hard the struggle is. Like St. Thomas Aquinas, we talked about this incident with the woman of ill repute. Struggling with purity, turn to Thomas Aquinas. He had that temptation right there before him, and he overcame it. So let's just let the saints walk with us and learn from their example, but also just enjoy their friendship and their intercession for us, that we too may, in the midst of the struggle, become victorious.
Right. I had not heard that story previously, Father. I didn't know that all the things that went in behind it either, but what a gift indeed it was to be there. And my understanding is, actually, as long as we're on the topic, that his skull was out on tour. Is that what I understand?
Well, exactly, and it dates to that day. So, when that Dominican opened the tomb, it was only when Thomas died in Italy, then they moved him to France, they moved him into hiding, they moved him back into the church, and the fourth time they touched his relics was when we were there.
Wow.
All right? So it's not a common thing,
no.
right? And so they were there to measure his skull to make this new reliquary.
I see.
So that his skull could be seen. And so that's what they were doing, is measuring it to create this new reliquary for this Jubilee, the Dominican Order Jubilee of Aquinas himself. So that reliquary that went on tour in parts of the United States this past few months, that was actually the reliquary they were trying to create when we were there, Patrick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very good, Father. I really appreciate that. Hi, this is Patrick Conley. You can join me and listen on the Relevant Radio app to The Inner Life, live each weekday at 11 a.m. Central. And thanks for listening.